1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. On the phone right now, Paul Lukas. He's an ESPN uniform columnist. Yes, uniform columnist. Paul, the NCAA tournament. When I was filling out my bracket, look, we went to analytics experts, we went to bracketologists, we went to Vegas, and I was out by about 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. So I need to change it up for the Sweet 16 and going forward. The uniform theory. Based on the uniform theory, who's winning the national championship? Because I got no other options here.
Well, I just did my Sweet 16 rankings up on ESPN.com. And, sometimes, the on-court performance and aesthetics completely align. And they just line right up. And that is the case, I would say, with North Carolina, which, of course, is the number one seed and is the best-looking team in the tournament. I mean, sometimes people say, they read my stuff and they say, oh, you're a traditionalist. And I say, no, I'm a classicist. And the difference is a traditionalist says, oh, don't change anything because I just don't want to change anything. And a classicist says, don't change anything because it works. Classics are classic for a reason. And UNC, it's the perfect design. You got that arched lettering, above and below the number. You've got that Argyle trim up the side. You got the Carolina blue. That's a great-looking team. Also happens to be a great performing team. And to me, if I were doing a bracket just based on the uniforms, they would definitely be my number one seed.
Paul, is there a method to this madness? You talk about ranking of the uniforms. Is this personal preference? Is this things players enjoy the most? Is it fans? How do these rankings get put together?
For me, it's just, it's personal preference. It's, and that's, you could say, oh, everyone's got an opinion, and that is true. And, that's how does a movie critic get to be a movie critic? Everyone has an opinion on movies. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've got my opinions. They're just my opinions. They're no more, they're no more valid than anybody else's. But they are based on a long time of watching sports and looking at design and assessing design. And some things work better than others. For example, UNC, that works really well. Then you look, down at the bottom of my rankings, you got Texas A&M wearing, like several of the other teams that are outfitted by Adidas, wearing that kind of shoulder harness, color blocking on the shoulders, and that the striping on the shorts that looks like a cummerbund from a tuxedo. We first saw that. The Adidas schools were wearing that last March. They've kept it up this March. It's a terrible, terrible look. And, I'm kind of surprised they brought it back for 2016 because so many people were ridiculing it last year.
Paul Lukas, ESPN uniform columnist with us on 1045 The Team and 1045theteam.com. Brady and Gaz in for Levac today. Paul, how grateful should my eyes be? My cornea is very, very happy that Baylor-Oregon matchup did not happen in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. That would have been one where you were thinking, like, is there a switch where I can just sort of tone down the colors or switch my TV to black and white? We see this trend with these neon or fluorescent colors, or if it's Nike, they call it Volt. The other outfitters have similar tones with other names. And so, the only team left with that kind of color pattern is Oregon. They actually have two different neon yellow uniforms that they've worn so far in the tournament. We may see even more, or maybe they'll switch to white, or who knows? This is Oregon. They may surprise us at any given moment. I'm kind of hoping for a title game, and this could work out the way it's shaping up now. Title game of UNC versus Oregon, because that would be the perfect clash of styles, the perfect comparison of old school versus newfangled. And that, to me, that's always an interesting thing when you can compare these two different aesthetic styles. It's just like we had in the I think it was the 2011 college football title game when you had Oregon up against Auburn. So again, it was like the new school, the newfangled thing, the futuristic thing against the classic old school thing.
Paul, you're talking about newfangled and futuristic, and I'm going to have to put a picture of this one up on our Twitter at 1045theteam when we're off the phone here. Heading to baseball season, please tell me, what are the Arizona Diamondbacks doing? You cannot be a fan of this.
I am not a fan of most of what they're doing. What aren't they doing? They got so much going on this year. For the simplest and most obvious thing, if you watch the Diamondbacks on the road, you're going to notice that they are not wearing the standard road grays. They're wearing something closer to like a road charcoal. It's a really dark gray that they've got going on. And so, they've got all these different jerseys that they pair it with. Sometimes it's, a gray jersey, but they also have a red jersey and a black jersey, but they'll always have these dark gray pants on the road. And those are something to see, especially for a night game. They kind of blend into the background. But then they also have, for all their different uniforms, and they have a lot of mix and match combos this year, they have these pants that sort of do a reverse fade from the base color of the fabric, whether it's white or dark gray, to a solid color as it goes down toward the pant cuff. And, their main team color is red. So you've got their white home pants that are white and then sort of fade into this deep red down at the base of the pant cuff, and it looks basically like they're bleeding. It looks like their shins or their Achilles tendons or their heels or whatever are soaked in blood. It's a ridiculous look. It's one of those we're going to do it different just to be different kind of things. And, sometimes that works. It has historically. There have been examples of teams that tried to switch things up and sort of stumbled into something that became iconic. I don't think that's going to be the case with this one.
So we see the Diamondbacks going with this new school look. The Pittsburgh Pirates talking about going back to the old school 1970s look, all that yellow. What do you think about the Pirates possibly going old school?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you call it old school. What the Pirates are doing, they've always had a Sunday throwback. And so for the last several seasons, they were using, I believe it was a 1971 throwback from like the end of Roberto Clemente's career with the mustard tones and all that. And now they've swapped that one out this year, and their new Sunday throwback for Sunday home games is the 1979 We Are Family Bumblebee style throwback, and it's got the pillbox hat and the whole thing, and that's the uniform they wore, of course, when they won the World Series in 1979. And it's funny that you call that old style, because in 1979 that was considered pretty radical. The Pirates had all these mix and match combinations: the black pants, the gold pants, the black jersey, the gold jersey, the white jersey, the white jersey with the gold pinstripes. They had all this stuff going on. They were constantly mixing and matching. And they were actually in the forefront and the vanguard of what was seen as a newfangled, futuristic approach to uniform design at the time. And now, everything is relative, right? 45 years later, or almost. Am I doing my math right there? About 40 years later. That now we look back at that as classic and old school. So, it's possible something like what the Diamondbacks are doing this year. Maybe several decades down the road, we're going to look at that as classic and old school, but I don't think so. I'd be betting against it.
I'm with you. Paul Lukas, ESPN uniform columnist with us, 1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. Brady and Goz in for Levac today. All right, Paul, we're 6 months away from the first NFL game, but it's still a football society. If you could redesign one NFL uniform, which front office are you going to first and saying, please, let me help you?
It's an interesting question, because there's the teams that just look awful, and then there's the teams that have just stuck with the same thing for too long and could really use like a refresh. It's not that they look bad, it's just that they've gotten stale. I would say the single biggest problem in the NFL uniform-wise is the Jacksonville Jaguars helmet, that two-tone helmet. And, if you change that helmet, the rest of their uniform, while I'm not in love with it, is like a sort of unified piece of kind of new school, newfangled kind of superhero costume, uniform as superhero costume design. And if they just had a helmet that wasn't so embarrassing, sometimes you see something and you say, I don't like that, but I understand the idea behind it. And then you see something like that two-tone Jaguars helmet, and it's like, not only do I not like that, but I don't even understand what they were trying to do there. And unfortunately, in the NFL, when you have a uniform, you're locked into it for 5 years. League guidelines say you can't change it for 5 years. I think we're looking at the fourth year coming up of that Jaguars helmet. So even if they want to change it, and I'm not sure they do, we're stuck with it for a little bit longer.
Paul Lukas, ESPN uniform columnist. I could do this all day, but Paul, we're going to let you go. We appreciate you being with us.
Always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.